Hey, how you doing? Welcome to the Tarot Flow Show, everybody. The Tarot Flow Show where synchronicity is the star. I am your host, Alison Pickering. I'm in Los Angeles, California. So happy, as always, to be with my co-host, the student of all things spiritual, and my dear friend, Kefri Skarabus in Stockholm. Welcome, Kefri. How you doing?
Thank you, Alison. I'm fine as always. Nice to
Good.
be here.
Nice to have you. And let's check
Thank
out
you.
our special guest today.
Yeah.
He is from Queens, New York. I've met him recently because we have been across the screens from each other, building our audiences and finding our voices and all that good stuff. And he is a very, very talented writer and poet outside of his regular day job where he helps the people in the systems. And because we're all familiar with the bureaucracy, all three of us have worked in big bureaucracies. And our dear friend is here today. Please welcome OSWALD Perez. Hi, Oswald. How you doing?
Hi.
Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. That is correct for all our different time zones. So we're having an international experience today. Hey, Oswald, welcome. What would you like to tell us about your life? What's going on these days?
Well, I've just come off. I just come off releasing the paperback version of my first book. Hold on one second.
Hey, congratulations. Let's check it out.
Thank you. It's called the poet. I don't know if you can see it on screen here, but it's called The Poetic Journey, Staying at Home. I'm gonna try to adjust my camera to get the better shot of it.
Yeah, Poetic Journey, Staying at Home. Congratulations. Congratulations to you, because you made good use of that COVID time, I see.
I did. Actually, actually it was 4 years ago on this very day that the first iteration of the book, which was only available as an ebook, actually it was 4 years ago today that it came out. So it just feels apropos that here I am
promoting your book. Fantastic. So we're all going to get Oswald's book. Yeah.
Here I am promoting the book all these years later, and it never gets old to see the fact that whenever people read my stuff to me, or being asked to read my poems, as it was the case during the Croatia trip on the at the farewell dinner, our guide Nicoletta asked me to read one of my poems during the farewell dinner because because my words were such a hit with everyone on the bus.
Wow! Congratulations!
Congratulations! I just bought one of your Kindle books, Oswald.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Both of you. I appreciate it.
We read it with great interest.
Excellent. Excellent. So let's take a look. So in terms of your life, you're a writer. You have now 4 years since the inception of your book during crazy COVID, and you made such good use of your time. We congratulate you. And then in terms of tarot, you mentioned that you had an oracle deck and once in a while would check that thing out. Do you have an experience with tarot proper?
Well,
we specialize in tarot virgins, my dear. We'll be gentle with you.
It's sort of like it. Not nearly as mostly through friends who are more deeper into tarot than I am. At best, I do have the Gary Bernstein Super Activator deck. That's the depth of my experience, really.
Cool. Well, I hope that this is a good experience for you today. Let's check out what we're going to be doing. We have a chance to briefly meet you now, and we're going to do a little segment in a moment after we look at our major arcana where we're going to unpack a card. And that's not the reading, but it is a way to look and see what is packed into a single major arcanum, a single major arcana card. And then we will take a look at the images in the minor arcana as well. And then we'll jump into a reading, which is, as always, not a prediction of the future, nothing set in stone, not, what this is. It's an experience for us all to have together here in a moment in time. And we're going to do this reading for your consideration. So whatever pops up and the words that we record and things like that, you'll have the recording. And then it will be for you to see what relevance it has for you over the next couple of days, because it can be very helpful to reflect on and consider and all of that good stuff. I kind of think of this as like we go through our life on a timeline and we're just bopping along, and you had a lovely timeline in another part of the world. And even then, there were probably certain moments where you would stop and have just a moment of contemplation. And in that moment, so much can happen. And so that's what we're hoping for, that in this moment, in this little 45 minutes that we're going to spend together, that we are going to have an experience where we can really look at what the moment contains, what do the images contain to consider, and then perhaps that's useful for us to chat about today and for you to consider and have that recording of. For those of you, anybody watching who's into this kind of thing and want to learn about tarot and have the opportunities for tarot talk and travel that we have it at ALISONPickering.com, please come on down to ALISONPickering.com and see what we have going. We're going to be starting our academy we are teasing it out in November, the month upcoming, and then we're going to start up in 2025 with our academy. So let's check it out. Oswald, what we have here in the major arcana, and this is there, 22 of these cards you can see up on our graphic there. And this isn't a person. This is a picture of like an entity. Let's say it's a psychological, it's an archetype. It's a larger force that lives within our human psychology. It's depicted in this form that was drawn very Eurocentrically, by the way, back in the turn of the 19th to the 20th century. In 1909 and 1910, this project was done. And I don't think the authors lived long enough. I know that they did not live long enough to see the impact that this particular deck has had, because almost every deck that is out there is a clone of some sort of this deck or of the Aleister Crowley deck, which is another very seminal deck. And so a lot of what we see these days is a clone or an imitation of the structure of this deck that we're going to see here. This is the zero card. He's the Fool. He's the main archetype. He can kind of fit in anywhere as a zero. And then here are some cards for us to take a look at, just a quick tour of the major arcana. The top row, very oversimplified, but let's say that this is our inner inventory of qualities, what we come into our life with. We have an inner masculine and feminine spiritual polarity. We have an external masculine and feminine mother and father, whether we ever interacted with them or not. We have the way that we're brought up to think, which is the social mores. That's that Hierophant card. We have our relationships and our friendships. That involves choices and dealing with other people. That's the Lover's card. And then you have the idea that we go beyond our house when we get out in the world, and that's the Chariot card. That takes us to the middle row that a friend of ours calls adulting. These are different lessons that you might go through. How do we handle our passions with that Strengths card, and our violence and all of that force that we have within us? How do we handle being alone with that Hermit card? How do we handle luck and other people's stuff with the Wheel of Fortune, law, with the Justice card, solitude or periods of, difficulty with the Hanged Man, or massive changes that we can't do anything about that march through our lives like the Death card. How do we get tested? How do we live through all that kind of stuff? What are we doing with our spiritual mix at that point? I'm going to pull us off screen to look at the states of consciousness on this bottom row. The Devil, very materialistic, power driven, forgetting that there's other things going on. Then the other things going on, like life will come and remind you that your ideas aren't the only ideas. And sometimes that's very shocking with that Tower card. Then we're left unto ourselves. Who are we at our essence? That's the Star card. Then you have this Moon card, because as you open your eyes to try and figure it out, it's hard to remember what that lightning bolt showed us. And then the sun card is when we have the opportunity to touch source maybe and to get re-energized, and then it carries us, and then we are into a new awakening, and then a new time, a new trip around, and then we can see the double wands in the hands of this Fool figure, who is, all of these figures are the same Fool figure. They're us, you know, it's our human journey. You can see that very good. So among the Fool and these others, there are 22. So Oswald, if you wouldn't mind, would you let us know in between 1 and 22, what would be a number that I should count out in these cards here? What's the number between 1 and 22?
13.
13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And 13 today is the Emperor card. Let us see the Emperor. Number 4. So here's our Emperor figure. And we can see the predominance of red. And so one of the aspects of this card is the force of Mars, the planet Mars. So the Emperor, he's the one who can call a country to war. He's the ruler. You can see this scepter in the one hand, the globe in the other hand. And even though he has this beautiful regal robe, underneath he's armored up, you know, he's not on cushy cushions like the Empress, the pregnant Empress. He is on a stony throne filled with Aries the ram, and up in the high mountains. And so it's a no cush for the Emperor. Heavy is the crown. He is responsible, and he is the structure. So the Emperor is the one who provides structure, whereas the Empress provides the substance. The Emperor provides the structure, and he is always checking with the feminine force. As you can see, his eyes are kind of looking to the left. He's checking with the Empress. He's checking with the High Priestess, who's another guidance figure within that array, to make sure that he's not too unbalanced in his forcefulness. What are some other things, Kefri, that we can observe in the Emperor card for us to be aware of?
If we look at him as a person, he is the king, the emperor, and he has a responsibility for his land, but he doesn't have necessarily the responsibility for each person in that land. So he has a higher form of responsibility that he is to conduct, actually. And perhaps he has not the responsibility for just one person in that of that gathering of many persons, so to speak. And we also have this half circle here of black at surrounding his legs, and they are resting on a half cycle of white, actually. And that is, of course, the two forces of the universe, the black and the white. And he is inside of both of them, we can say, and he rests on the light. So he works out from the light, but he is aware of the shadowy nature of life as well, actually. And also we have that teeny string here of water, if you look closely, and that is his emotions, because he has emotions, but not so many that he can show, actually. And also all that orange in this card is about the planet Mercury and logic. And he bases a lot of his decision making on rationality, how the world is looking. But he can have a higher form of contact also with something higher spiritual, but he can't show it, actually, because people must believe in him and believe he is ruling from out of the world, actually. That's the thing. He can't show exactly who he is. And the symbol for this card is a window, actually, and he can look through a window into another higher world, perhaps. So that is a bit of what is in this card.
Thank you. So
You're
you can
welcome.
see, Oswald, that, you know, you can geek out. Kefri and I geek out on a regular basis here in terms of what all the symbols are that are in a card. But in a more holistic sense, you might be looking at this and just getting a sense of, like, I don't know, leadership or ownership or boss or father or something like that. You know,
or
are there any
more like
holistic kind of, go
like
ahead.
the sense of like the clear sense of responsibility that comes with anyone that has any measure of power.
Yes,
It's
indeed. Well
and the
said.
sense of wearing in the legs, like you sense the weariness, like it's not easy to it's not easy knowing that you're responsible for a vast group of people, and it
Yes, well
shows in
said.
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
shows in his legs that even that sense of like having to protect everyone, it does take its toll at some it takes its toll on himself, having to
Do you know, after
protect.
all these years, Oswald, no one has ever picked up on that kind of weariness in the body language that you just observed right now. I want
Like
to
I
give you
see it,
compliments for that
I
perceptiveness.
see it in the pose of him sitting. It's like it's that weariness where it's like, oh, I had to keep like have to watch over everybody. Like when like where do I fit in all this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well said. And so you can see that one image can provoke a lot. Even what's drawn into it is one kind of level of intention, and then the effect is that it evokes within us all kinds of things within our intuition, within ourselves. It's entirely possible that you are asking yourself, when is your time for you? Perhaps you've been serving and helping others and being in a role rather than in your own kind of being or what your
I mean,
preferences would be.
it's not too far off base
Mm,
where it's like you like for example at work I am pretty much like making sure that all the cases get rescheduled, and heaven forbid like I even one case even goes even one day over the fall, like everyone like picks up on it, and it's like you have to scramble to get it rescheduled ASAP,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and
So
it's like
everybody's got their realm. You know, you have your thing that you are responsible for, and heavy is the crown if something goes wrong, right?
yeah, every to have my small realm in the calendar unit, and it's like it does, even though it's not like not obviously like consequential if anything goes wrong, it's not like it doesn't like completely affect me. It just I begin to like wonder like how could I miss it, like like I'm already like have so many cases a day that get dropped in that need to be rescheduled, and it's like a lot of the balancing acts.
Indeed, indeed. So you can relate to this emperor, and you and all of us have within us all of these archetypes, and they are in play in our lives and in the areas where we have to act and embody our leadership, our responsibility, and to make sure that our the what we're responsible for goes smoothly. And when things don't, then all of a sudden the implications, people are suffering, and then we suffer, and so it becomes
Or
it's a reciprocal kind of relationship.
either that or everyone's like wondering what happened. Everyone's like questioning, like wanting an answer. The same go like you can at
Yeah,
home, at work,
why?
like like it's it's a useful. It applies to pretty much every part of one's life, honestly.
Okay, very insightful already. We have the best guests, Jeffrey. We have the
Yeah,
best
we
guests on
have.
this show. I
We
know it's
have.
always so much fun, Oswald,
Yeah.
when we get a guest that is so already so intuitive and picks up on things. So this is just an example of how deep a card can be and how much it evokes from us about our own lives, other people's lives. This could remind you of somebody, even aside from yourself, it could remind you of other people in your life, et cetera, et cetera. So all this is showing us is that these images, though they are very ancient kind of looking, can be very relevant to our present day life. And so as we look at those, I thank you for giving us a quick introduction into this card, which is number 4 in our sequence here. And so those are some of the majors The majors being that soul journey. Then we're going to take a quick look at the minors, because if you've ever played poker or gin rummy or anything like that, you've played with some cards that are the descendants, shall we say, of these cards. And you can see we have 4 suits here. We've got on the left is the wands, then we have the cups, then we have the spades, and then we have the pentacles. And if we took these and we flipped them vertically so that the wands were on the top, this would give us the opportunity to have a little bit about what the tarot is implying or what it's signifying. And that's the idea of the tree of life, or the idea of a process of creation or a process of emanation. I'm going to take an idea. So let's say, Oswald, you had the idea, you get an idea for a poem. Something inspires you. You don't know where that inspiration comes from. You know it got triggered. Something made that into, but you don't know exactly where that came from. You want to be responding to it, but you don't really control it. That's
exactly,
the one.
because if I don't respond to it, it's gonna be gone. Like that's like usually like it could literally be anything that like crosses my mind, or anything that's observed in my line of sight that could instantly spark an idea. And then once I have it, like I'm like quick to open up either the notepad on my phone or the notes app on my iPod to like jot something down, even if I'm like waiting at the bus stop in the morning and something like comes up.
And when you're doing that, you're going through the entire cycle that we're looking at here. So you have sped through in every moment like that, in a virtual way. You're going from that idea. So you got the idea, right? So you have to care about that idea. That's the emotional piece. You have to want to do it. It has to be important to you. That idea has to be important for you to pull out your phone or to pull out your thing and start making some notes and start recording those feelings. That's the cups, is the feeling tone. You can see the knights down below. The one guy has the idea. The next guy has the care, the quest. And then after that, if you're going to take it further, you're going to probably take it out of your phone and then get it onto paper. You're going to string it out and figure out what the order is it's going to be in. You're going to make a plan for it.
Not on paper? Like sometimes on paper, like I do a mix of both, like paper and virtual. I'll like jot something down, like have like a rough idea of what I want of the poem. I'll come back, I'll let it sit for a little bit, and then come back to it and see if it can stand on its own, or if it needs a bit more. But the thing is, I don't want to I don't want to overthink it either.
Yes, indeed. And so all of those processes are depicted in here, because what you don't want to do is spend hours and hours and days in the swords, because that's a painful place where you're constantly trying to make decisions. And so we're going to draw back from your poetry process, and then think of just generically speaking, bringing an idea into inception. You got to have the idea. You got to care about it. You got to kind of line it up and make a plan for it. And then, only then, is it going to be in the flesh, which is that pentacles. So we have the fire, the water, the air with the swords, and then the earth with that pentacle. Why a 5-pointed star? Because we have 5 senses in our body. And our body is the way that we deal with the world. This is our tool for dealing with the world. And this is what we've been given. This is what we cultivate within ourselves. This thing that we have to work with is our currency. It's our coin in the world. And then the other thing is that in the world, in the flesh, in this, we're in time. And time is slow, and things take time. And that's the idea of that Knight of Pentacles, why he's so slow on his black horse there, is because it's showing us that in the earth, you have to plant things. They have to develop roots, sprout up, go through a whole process before we can eat, for example, because we need to eat, because if we don't eat, we're going to die. There's this idea of time and a whole process in order to live that's implied in those pentacles.
Exactly. It's my process. Like I jot down the words, eventually go through Canva. I try to find the right background for said piece, whether it be through my own whether it be something I photographed or going through Canva's library of images, picking the right font, heck, even like picking which version of my logo, because I have the darker and the lighter version.
Yes, and all of that is
Like,
sitting in the swords. You're like in between the cups and the swords. What do I like? What decision am I going to make? You know?
And then ultimately, once I get all that sorted out, when to run it. Like, I'll sometimes sometimes like if it's like sometimes I'll have pieces that are like so spur of the moment that they don't see the light of day on my Instagram feed, and some pieces I'll sit on, like I'll complete the process of running it through Canva, and it'll still be, it won't be like posted immediately. Like there's a certain degree of order that goes into when something gets posted.
Exactly. So everything has a certain process or cycle that it has to go through. And it's an interesting thing to reflect that that's what the design of the cards is reflecting. And so as we take a quick look here in our images, we can see in the wands, which is that suit of the original inception of the idea, you got the 1 through 10, and then you have these page, knight, queen, and king, and they're full of fire symbols. If you look at those court cards on the right side, salamanders and flames and the desert and lions and sunflowers and stuff, very, very sunny and warm, fiery kinds of images. When we go to the cups, we can see this is kind of stages of an emotional progression, of an emotional relationship, or of the maturity of an emotional trajectory, shall we say. That 1 through 10, this is a card where the 9 and the 10 really represent fulfillment. And then you can see the idea of kind of grail and quest and wateriness in the court cards with all the fish and shells and mermaids and ships and water and things like that. Then we get into this decision-making phase, the swords, which is the intellect and planning and thought. This is where you got to make the cut, you know, this is where the decisions come down, and it's a process of separation, you know, this yes, this no. This is where it gets pretty binary. And the air symbols that you can see in the court cards are there with birds and wind and clouds and butterflies. And then finally into the earth, where we have our pentacles. You can see family stuff, contracts and businesses perhaps depicted, and then all of the earth symbols with agriculture and grapes and animals and the flora and fauna that we see in the court cards. So that's our vocabulary right there, and that takes us right now into the reading that we're going to do with these cards. And so we have the vocabulary of images, and then these are the meanings for the placements. So each card's going to get placed in a place, and each of those places in a reading has its own significance. And so the locations on the reading here are you at the top, middle, whatever we're looking at, and then we're going to look at a timeline on the bottom. How did this flow in time? Is it over now, or is it still in play? What's advice? Let's be cautious on the top left. Maybe don't do that. You know, it might be your default mode, but let's avoid that. And then for your benefit, for the greater good, for your greatest growth, the supportive advice is going to be more helpful to you on the right top. And then at the end, we'll pick a 7th card to give us some additional perspective. And so that's my spiel in terms of talking about these cards and talking with you about some of the different aspects of the suits and everything. What questions might you have at this point?
Other than I'm curious to see how this will shake out. Like
Yeah.
I'll see. I mean, I'll take it for what it's worth. Like, I'm just curious to see how.
All right. Well, without further delay, let's get on into this. And I'm going to hand off to Kefri now. You can see he's been shuffling this entire time, and he's going to prompt you for the placement of the cards now.
Thank you, Alison. And Oswald, I am shuffling, and you say stop where you want the stop to be.
Stop.
There. And cutting, do you want to cut the deck, and how many times do you want to cut it?
3 times.
3 times, thank you. 1 and 2 and 3, and we are ready to go. And we start with the subject card in the middle top row, and it is the 2 of Cups. Then we go in the bottom row to the leftmost card, and that is the past, and that is the 6 of Swords. And then we go in the middle card in the bottom row, and that is the present card, and it is the 9 of Cups. Then we go in the rightmost position bottom, and that is the future, and that is the Hanged Man. Then we go up in the top row in the leftmost position, and that is the cautionary card, what's not to do, and that is the King of Wands. King of Wands. And then we go in the rightmost position in the top row, and that is the advice card, what is advised to do, and that is the Knight of Cups. And we wait with the 7th card for now.
Thank you. Okay, so let's go ahead and put up that 2 of Cups, please.
Yeah.
And certainly one thing we can notice here, so we've got 1 major so far. That's pretty proportional. 1 to 4 or 5 is pretty proportional. But the out of proportion is that we have 3 cups. And so the overall tone of this reading is going to be, there's a lot of emotion and about talking about emotions. Firstly, let's look
Honestly, it sounds about right. I tend to be the person that wears his emotions on his sleeve. So
well, you're a poet, my dear. You know, it's your business.
Yeah, poet, and when over the years you've been reminded of that sensitivity, how that you're sensitive, you do get emotional, tend to get emotional quick, like easily. So it kind of it tracks.
Yeah, for sure. And then we can talk further about that. But what I would just want to say is well done to you, because what this card also represents is the idea of coming into a healthy balance. And so it can also be that you have recently, or that you have in mind someone that you saw eye to eye with, and this has become someone that is important for you because you see a kinship and you see a possibility of a meeting of the minds, a meeting of the hearts. And so as much as this can be about finding someone externally, it's also about falling in love with yourself. It's also about understanding that you yourself have aspects and facets that are important and need to be joined together for your strength of personality and for your greater good and for your realization of yourself with a capital S, because you indeed are important. And if you've ever been cast in the role, it would be, I wonder, Oswald, if it would be interesting for you to check out some of the work of John Bradshaw. He talked about family dynamics, and I don't want, this is not the subject of the reading. I just want to, as an aside, sure. He talked about family dynamics, and there's another woman who also did some work. This is in the 90s, when you were born. They talked about the person who was the most sensitive in the family would end up taking all of the emotional brunt. Everybody would be repressing, and they're wondering why this one over here is always expressing, because they had the least amount of self-repression, and they're the barometer for everybody, you know?
Yeah, that sounds about right. When you hear for years the whole, oh, boys, you hear pretty much like the same old tropes. Oh, supposed to be macho. Boys aren't supposed to cry, or like supposed to have to be.
And yet, your sensitivity is your gift to the world, as you're showing with your poetry.
Exactly, the sensitivity the sensitivity is the superpower.
Indeed. And that's brilliant. And so look at you seeing yourself in a new light here. Exactly. As well as anybody else. So as you see yourself in a new light, other people are going to be seeing you in a new light as well, which is a lovely reciprocation. And so this idea of the reciprocation of your feeling in your outside world is also depicted here. As you come into balance in yourself, the world starts responding. And the health that we see with that intertwined snakes, like at a pharmacy,
Yeah.
you'd see that caduceus, that
Yeah.
lion and the wings. And so what you can see is Leo and Scorpio. There's sex, there's life, there's kundalini, there's vitality, there's love. And so there's there's love growing for you, for yourself. And as you feel the love for yourself, you can also interact with others and feel love for others. And so that is a beautiful thing to have grow within yourself. This has not been the easiest process. Let's take a look at the bottom row.
No, it hasn't. Like the type of person who will tend to keep to himself, like most of the time. Like I'm usually not like this, like outgoing most of the time, unless like less prompted or like in the perfect situation. Like I'm more the quiet person most of the time.
Yeah. And I see some vestiges of that old identity in this boat. But you yourself are taking yourself to a place of greater expression. So in terms of this, let's unpack this card a little bit. It's a 6. The 6 in the Kabbalah, in the Tree of Life, sits squarely in the middle of the sun, SON. Okay, so the sun as the center gravitational force of our galaxy, or of our solar system, better said. That magnetism of the sun is there. And it's also the sun in terms of like son of God kind of thing, is the idea where the 6 sits. And so it's in a place of balance and source connection. Okay. And the 6 is a balance of thinking. And so what this card is reflecting is your coming into, and among other things, but one of the things that this card can represent is your coming into a greater balance in your own mental self, in how you evaluate your life, in how you evaluate yourself. You are seeing yourself more clearly now. You are moving yourself to a more safe place emotionally and a more healthy place in terms of your thinking. And so, and we can pause this if you need to break for a moment.
No, I'm good. It's just like trying to find that space where it's like that place of safety and emotion. It's like hasn't been easy to attain. It's like like every like everyone will be like I'm a really harsh critic of my own when it comes to myself. Like often like because of the fact that like a lot of the things, like I call myself a late bloomer, where it's like I'm just really like getting my life and sense of who I am into gear in the last few years. I sort of been in a sense of obliviousness for a good chunk of my life.
And a good chunk of your life, you're a young man, has been with that weird lockdown that we had, to be kind of stuck in a house. You know, it's a big percentage of your life.
Between the lockdown, between the fact that I have cerebral palsy, so for and the sense that there was a need that they need to be protected at all times. Like even though, so I never I was so like so had that as my shadow all these years that I never really like figured out who I am outside of it. That's more or less what I'm trying to make up for lost time these days.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Oswald, you are so brilliant, because what you're doing is you're showing us and expressing to us how you are expanding your identity from this single kind of thing that was your heavily like central thing, I am this, whereas this is just like a very minor aspect of who I am, who you are, you know. And so hats off to you in publishing your book, in expressing your thoughts, in letting us in the world see who you are as a man inside. And hats off to you for having the wherewithal to carry yourself across the water in that way. Can you see the metaphors that I'm using that are
Yeah,
based in this card? Yeah. So the
yeah,
cards are just, there's so
I
much
do.
language within these cards. Can you see how the water is rougher on the one side of the boat than on the other side of the boat?
Yeah, it's like
And how and how
back
those
of the neck.
riders have to trust the guy who's poling the barge over the water. They can't mess with that formula right now. And so trust in yourself and trust in the guidance that you have been receiving and the guidance you've been taking, you know, for yourself as you guide yourself across the water and as you seek guidance from others. It's interesting that we can't see any of these faces. And so what that tells us is that this is well and truly behind you and that the best is yet to come. And that you're moving to a much more healthy place, and we can see that health again depicted in that the significator card. Would you show us that too again, please, Kefri?
Yeah.
So that's that balance again. So this idea of coming into your own, coming into all of the aspects of yourself, your masculine, your feminine, your lover, your soldier, your screamer, your whisperer, all these different, you are not one thing and you're not limitation. You are expression and an infinite interior life. You know, look at all that strength. And so let's look now at this present time card, or the card that came after, shall we say, the one that follows on from that 6 is this beautiful 9. And so there is this sense of pride. There's the sense of trophies. There's the sense of accomplishment. You have been, and with good reason, proudly displaying your expression, which is your product, which is the wine that has been distilled of all of what you have gone through in your solitude, in your isolation, in your introspection, in your analysis and distillation. You have been brewing a heady brew, you know, and it's lovely for you. And I wonder how many poems there are in your collection. There's 9 trophies here on the table and a bunch more under the table. This is like the bartender who's just keeps serving them up, serving them up, serving them up. So I'm sure there are zillions of poems still within you to be expressed. And maybe you're going to be writing songs too.
Sorry, can I?
Yeah, we're going to put a pause on this one moment.
Thank you.
Welcome back. So as we take a look at this 9, do be proud of what you have managed to do as you have moved yourself and married yourself, you know, in terms of as you come into your own identity and you recognize all the different facets of yourself. It's a great feeling of satisfaction, and it's appropriate that you feel that way. As we move into the future time, or as we move from this great satisfaction of your product, of your book, of your paperback and everything, then we're going to be going into a phase of a little less predictability in terms of time. And so what's going to be coming up is maybe going to feel like a delay to you, but it's going to be a really productive period. So let's look at this guy. He's kind of stuck, but he's upside down, but he's not uncomfortable. He's got a little tree pose going on. So he's even doing some physical exercise and he's posing himself for the greatest advantage here. And look at his halo. So even though things are upside down and it's making his hair stand on end, it's a good process to fill him with all of that energy and to fill his head with all of that energy. And so as you move into the times upcoming, it wouldn't be surprising if you felt like it's what they call in creative circles or in like songwriters, they call it woodshedding. It's where you kind of go into the workshop and you start creating. And that's what I think would...
My case, like the workshop for me is pretty much anywhere. There's no like set,
It's a
no set
metaphoric
space.
workshop. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a metaphoric workshop. There's no physical space where I just like sit there and write.
This is the
Like
workshop.
whenever like the inspiration comes, yeah, that whenever it comes, it comes.
Indeed. Indeed. And so it's going to be coming quite a lot. And you're going to be wondering what is the form that it's going to take. Is it going to continue to be poetry? Is it going to be prose? Is it going to be a screenplay? Is it songs? We don't know. You don't know. It's going to be a lot of contemplation and a lot of creativity. So look forward to a period of great creativity upcoming, which is going to not feel like forward movement, but recognize that you have just completed a big forward movement. You've just done that big kind of cross over the river. You've had your big summer vacation. You've had a lot of things happen. And now this is kind of a period of the winter slowdown, that creative process where you're kind of drawing in. It's like a wave, you know, it draws in before it can move forward. So this is that drawing in period that doesn't feel like things are moving, and yet they are building, building, building. And so what does that look like in terms of how to approach it energy-wise or advice-wise? Looking up at the Knight of Cups, let's look at the positive advice, please, Kefri, if you would show us that Knight of Cups. You can see that this guy has a quest. And so I would suggest that the cards are saying, do continue to capture your thoughts in these beautiful containers. Do continue to go forward and figure out new ways and new forms for this water, this beautiful emotional gift that you have. What are the forms that this water can, what are the forms that you can capture this water in? You know what I mean? So you can capture it in a poem, you can capture it in a song, you could capture it in a short story, or perhaps in an essay, or, you know, we don't know, you don't know, because you are a work in progress. And you are carrying yourself forward because you are your quest. Your identity, your expression, your emotional reality, the gift that you bring to the world is what you are carrying forward. The advice for you is to continue to figure out a way to bring these thoughts and feelings forward into the world. And it will be helpful for you to be in a contemplative mode and to be as receptive as possible. So just continue to be the vessel that you are for these thoughts to arrive. Let's take a look at this King of Wands.
Yeah.
Our King of Wands is our advice against. And one thing about the King of Wands is that he moves on from success to success, and it's next, and it's next, and it's next. And he does.
That sounds like me in a nutshell, really. Like I will go from like one like I'll go from like one thing, like say the vacation Croatia was done, and like less than 72 hours
Oh, you plan the
later,
next
when I
one.
had the
Yeah.
you know, it was more, no, it was more 72 hours later. I'm like I had to like remind myself, Oswald, like you just came home from Croatia. This trip was pretty awesome. Don't even think about like going mentally moving on from this quite so quickly.
So you're even giving
I,
yourself
I,
the same advice. That's hilarious. So you yourself
I,
recognize your tendency to run and run and run to the next big thing.
because I do that, I've done that so often, and then it's like like go from like thing to thing to thing, and then it all like goes over my inevitably all of it goes over my head, and I'm wondering like then I reach the point where it's like, okay, like a lot of this happened, and you completely completely forgot that you actually did all this because you're so gung
Right.
ho on keeping moving on.
Well said. Well said. So that that sense is depicted here in the cards. Let's take a look at the 7th card that we have available,
Yes,
because it's such a nice pair to
it's
this
the
King of Wands.
it's the Queen of Wands, actually.
So
There
what we're
it
seeing
is.
here, Oswald, is that so you have this recommendation of the Knight, and notice the direction he's moving in versus the direction that King that we looked at a moment ago is going. That King is looking to the left, and our Knight is moving to the right, and that's the same direction that our Queen is looking. And so the indication here, and notice the difference between the wands. The King's wand is off the foundation, and the Queen's wand is on it. Kefri's going to speak to that a little bit, but this is also indicating that the introspection is appropriate right now. It's important for you to consider what you are bringing to yourself before you bring it out into the world. And so this may be a period of self-feeding, so to speak. That Hanged Man is feeding his head by pausing in the outward motion and letting all this like run to his head, so to speak. In the same way, the Queen is keeping to herself all the stuff that she knows, and she's the big manager. She manages all this stuff, but she doesn't tell everybody about it. She keeps it in her purview. For the moment, you're going to be woodshedding, or I would predict that it's going to be helpful for you to be looking at how other people do their thing, looking at song structure. Maybe you want to take a songwriting class. Maybe you want to take a screenwriting class. Maybe you want to learn a software for turning your stuff into something else. You know, there's going to be the opportunity to expand in the poetry, and go more into the poetry, or into another direction, or into a way to distill that into another product. I mean, I think that there's going to be all kinds of ideas that are coming to you, but you don't have to bring them out into the world immediately. There's not an urgency to bring them out into the world. In fact, that's the recommendation against, because that's a bit of your default mode. So the recommendation is to just pull it in a little bit and keep it in-house for a while.
Okay.
In-house for a while, and let yourself be the cauldron for this soup to cook. I'm getting into the Halloween metaphors there. Let yourself be the vessel for this, so you don't have to measure your success by the outward world. And I mean, you've had the experience of putting out this product to the outward world, and now you have something that you can promote, and you can be outward with that very comfortably. But what's next?
Exactly. Like I have
is you, and then that's
I do have this thing that I can like. So this is what I have. This is what I have to offer. I can call into my other like moments where I've like previously published to like demonstrate this is the work that I've done. Like I don't have to be like, I don't have to go, and I could let things like sit. Like, you don't have to be in such a hurry to keep up with everyone else that posts on Instagram every day.
And that's impossible, isn't it?
And it's more like, it's hard not to like wonder, like, I know I try not to focus on like the algorithms, the likes that, or like wonder like, oh, why am I not getting, like, what am I like doing wrong, where it's like I'm not like getting, like, people aren't resonating with what I put out there. Yeah, that thought comes into my head at times, and I begin to wonder, am I really as good of a writer as everyone says I am? So it's not that uncommon to like think all of that.
I think that is super healthy thinking. Honestly, that shows that you got a solid head on your shoulders. And it's going to be helpful for you to recognize that, but you don't have, but you've also proven yourself. So no longer is there that need within you to prove yourself to the world. That's done. I mean, you can continue to do that, but you've established yourself. And now you can sit in that for a while. You don't have to keep insisting that that's your identity or that's who you are. You can sit in that for a while and then do your redefinition internally, and then you can reemerge with that other aspect of yourself at whatever time you're ready.
true.
When
There
you're ready.
is there
When
is
you're ready.
there is ro- there is room to reinvent, and I don't have to like do it on anyone else's timeline except my own.
Exactly. And
Except
Stacy
on my own
provides a weird kind
terms.
of, and Stacy's brilliant, but she has a speediness about her that doesn't match my speed, and I don't know how it matches yours. Everybody has their own kind of operating rhythm. And we don't need to operate on other people's rhythm. We need to operate on our own as well. We can
No.
take ideas and we can learn, but we don't have to be defined by other people's parameters.
No, it's only of our own parameters.
Exactly. Exactly. Kefri, I'm going to hand off to you. Oswald, I
Yeah,
hope this is a useful process to look at these. We have another class that's going to start in a little while. I'm going to hand off to Kefri so that you have the benefit of his insight. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Alison. I will go a bit fast here as we have a bit of time restraints for the moment. But it's like something has happened here, and that is your creativity that has started to emanate, actually. And for the moment, you have built a base, a foundation that is ready, but it is not filled for the moment. And I think that you feel an anxiety how you are going to fill it quite fast, and you don't need to do that, actually, because as Alison has been saying, you need to relax and take it easy and let things come to you. And you have a mission in this, and it's like you can plan, but the mission can be stronger than the planning, actually. So it's more of an advice to follow where your intuition is leading you, because that is the right way to go here, and not concentrate so much on likes and everything, and to reach out in the world, so to speak, because that will come automatically here. And there is something here that I think that you should also go deeper down in mythologies and in perhaps the King Arthur saga and the Parsifal saga and everything, because there is things for you to pick up there, I think, that you can use as an inspiration in your own poetry, prosa, or what it will be, so to speak. And that will balance it very well. And you have that foundation for that balance. You have built that foundation for that balance. Now you need to fill it with inspiration. And that will come if you relax and take it easy and don't feel the urge to likes and internet and podcasts and everything. Just be yourself and feel when it is right to do something, and know that you are set out to do big things, because you are that. And I stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I think that it's a very beautiful thing to see. There's also the idea with the Queen here, that whatever you're cooking up is not quite, as we used to say, not quite ready for prime time. Because the King, he's kind of ready for prime time, but we're not quite there yet, because he's ready to step out with it. But you're still formulating, you're still determining, you've reached one phase, and now you're moving to the next, and you need to contain it before you display it. And so this is your period of time to be doing this. You've had one big kind of step out with the book, and then, like all writers, you're going to be stepping back for a year or two as you cook up your new thing, as you cook up your new creative project, as the influences and these grails. So the reason that I believe Kefri was suggesting that you look into the King Arthur myths and the Parsifal myths is because of that Knight of Cups. Let's take a quick look at that Knight of Cups, because he is carrying the Holy Grail, So what is your Holy Grail? What is the thing that would be most precious for you? what is the precious distillation of your essence that you're going to bring out into the world? That takes time. It's like no wine before it's time or something like that. So you don't want to come out with grape juice when in fact you're going to come out with a fine wine. And so give yourself the gift of time and alleviate yourself of the pressure of other people's expectations and timelines and their own, because there's a money drive behind things going on, and that pushes, there's an urgency and a thing that puts us into a different mode. It's into a dollar mode as opposed to a creative mode. And I think that it's going to be really helpful for you to stay in the creative mode. Notice that we have no pentacles anywhere on this reading. So it's really not about the dollar mode, and it's not about coming out with a physical thing at this point. It's really about your heart and ensuring that your heart is honored in its expression. And that's going to take some time for people to really, so perhaps your next thing is a memoir.
Yeah.
Or something like that of your experiences
that was
in your childhood.
That's kind of where my mind is ultimately heading, where whether it be some sort of memoir, whether it be childhood or from my travels akin to, say, James Michener's Iberia or Francis May's Under the Tuscan Sun.
Oh, I see. You have high hopes. Oh, you have wonderful models. Fantastic. Yeah.
Somewhere in that, somewhere in that, heading towards that way. Yeah. And going from kind of isolation into world travel is such a big, distinction there. And so what I'm curious about how you, that the process of bridging those gaps and things, and for others who also haven't yet dared to do that, your things will be very inspiring, I believe.
Yeah.
I think that you have great things ahead of you, Oswald, and I'm very proud to have gotten to know you early in the phase right now.
Thank you. It's all part of the, as the cliche kind of goes. It's all just the journey, not the destination.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Indeed. And that's why this recommendation is here, is to stay on the horse and don't get off the horse and bring your prize to anybody quite yet. You still have to carry it a ways.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's precious.
It is.
Precious. Back to our Tolkien references.
Of course.
So I thank you. This is the Tarot Flow. You are certainly more than welcome to join us in the future, so we can get a little update a couple months down the line, maybe.
Hey, thank you both for having me.
Thank you.
I hope this is useful. I'm going to send you the recording, and then as you replay it, perhaps it will be useful for you to contemplate. And that's our intention, is just to give someone it's a bit of a feedback reflection to help you on your journey, and to ensure that your journey is beautiful and successful, and that your quest is realized. So all the best to you, Oswald Perez, in your future travels.
Thank you both so much for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah. Great to be here with you, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you, everybody. If you've been here this long, then bid Oswald a fond farewell as we play him off with a little music here on the Tarot Flow Show. Thanks, everybody.